Ze noemen het van the farm to the hill. Dat betekent vanaf Stanford Universiteit je businessplan schrijven, de heuvel hier omhoog rijden en op Sand Hill Road je geld komen halen. Want meer dan $100 miljard aan geld wordt hier beheerd door wat de beste investeerders ter wereld heten te zijn. Wij gaan praten met David Hornik, de podcastende venture capitalist, over maar één ding: geld.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Street light people. Don't stop.
How do you become a VC?
That's a good question. I mean, I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I was representing an interesting company, and the investors in that company got to know me and like me.
You're representing them as a lawyer.
Yeah, that's right. I was an attorney, and I was representing a company called Eind, and the partners at August Capital had invested in that company, and I spent time at the board meetings and getting to know them, and eventually they said, "Hey, have you ever thought about the venture business?" And I said, "Yes."
Really?
That sounds great. Oh, I looked at the VCs and I thought they just got to come sit around the table and pontificate. Oh, this is what we think, then we think another thing, and then the board meeting ended and they went home and they got in their Mercedes and they went home and they ate a fancy meal. And then I did all the work, and I thought, well, that sounds better.
It's kind of what I think that VCs do.
Yeah, right. So little did I know that when I then joined August Capital. This is almost 10 years ago. Wait a second, there's actually a whole lot more to it. I sort of engage in three sets of things. I spend some amount of my time working with companies that I've already invested in, going to board meetings and interviewing candidates and those sorts of things. I spend some amount of my time looking at new deals, sitting in meetings with potentially new interesting companies, and then the last piece is sort of talking with people, going to conferences, going to breakfasts, going to lunches. I mean, it's very taxing. I guess you'd add the fourth piece, which is all of the email in every minute in between. Probably 400 emails a day or something. The nice thing about the venture business is when I'm finished for the day, when it's 6 o'clock, I can go home and I can have dinner with my kids and hang out with them. And then when they go to sleep, then I go back to work. And so I can do email from 10 until 2 in the morning.
So this whole story about VCs not doing much other than counting the money.
Yeah. Well,
unless you're really a bad one.
I was going to say, I'm clear. Either that story is true and I'm just doing it wrong, or now there are degrees of everything. But my typical week is pretty busy. I'm still spending a lot of hours. Being a venture capitalist is an incredibly great job. I have no complaints.
You work with very motivated people to start with.
Absolutely.
Both your partners and the companies that you invest
Yep.
in. So that's usually already different from working in an average company, I guess. Like, I don't know. I won't name any, but...
Yeah, right. No, people tend to be very smart. They tend to be very, very motivated and engaged. David Marquardt, who was my partner and was the only private investor in Microsoft, still sits on that board after 28 years. So in 28 years, he's been working with Bill Gates since Bill was in his 20s, helping and giving advice and trying to make the company as successful as possible. And I think if you asked Bill what he thought of Dave and the things that he's done for the company, he'd be very positive.
He put in, I think, 4 or 5 million, if I remember the books right, because I read these books 20 years ago.
Just a little bit of money. A little bit of money,
and it turned out into billions, if I'm not wrong.
It was a very, very impressive outcome. I mean, what's amazing is, the money is great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the venture business is about taking a certain amount of money, investing it in companies, and hoping that it becomes a larger amount of money. And that makes perfect sense, and that's my job. My job is about money. But to tell you the truth, the fun part, the thing that's interesting, the thing that's engaging is the watching these companies grow, because the money's really a byproduct of building a great business. Mm-hmm. Companies that I invested in where it was 3 people who had a good idea and now they're 400 employees, and you think, wow, that's pretty amazing to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. That it's something that's important enough and valuable enough that it generates revenue that can support the salaries of 400 people. And then next year, 600. And the year after that, 1,000. Mm. And so that's what, I think that's the exciting part. company like Tickle, which Monster bought for $100 million, and I invested in a company called PayCycle, and Intuit bought it for a couple $100 million. Those businesses, we made money, everybody did well, I feel good about them. And then I have 15 companies that are moving towards interesting outcomes in varying degrees. Some are very early. Some have made a couple $100 million in revenue this year, and
Really?
and so those things will be interesting. But it's not over. It's not over till it's over.
Which company have you invested in that makes a couple $100 million revenue?
Again, I don't want to. I don't have favorite children, but
You don't have to have them favorite. Just tell them which company it is. I couldn't figure out of your portfolio which company that was. Maybe I didn't study it well enough.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share with you offline the financials of all my companies. It is a surprising amount of pressure. You definitely wake up some mornings and think to yourself, "Wow." There's $140 million invested in a set of companies, and if they all go to zero, I've lost a lot of people's money. And that's a little
bastard.
scary. Right, yeah, these are people's retirement accounts.
Yeah, you're doing pension funds and university
foundations
endowments
that are trying to do good, and I'm wasting away their money investing in bad ideas.
Where's the money right now? What do you think is the trend that we have to follow? Where do we have to invest? Where do you have to work in?
Yes, August.
What's the big thing?
At August Capital, we sort of say, whatever that is, we'll do something else, and there'll be plenty of money over there, but everybody else will be off. It's like, chum in the water, all the fish,
The sharks fight over it?
Yeah, you guys fight, and then we'll catch the thing over here.
Yeah, but in that, in the big pond, they may have the big fish, and
It
you're over
may.
there catching goldfish.
Well, historically, it's been bigger than goldfish.
Yeah.
The partners in the firm were.
So you don't tend to invest in big trendy things like Web 2.0 companies.
We really don't.
You guys don't go in there.
We really don't like trends. Now, it's not to say we won't invest in companies that somehow hit those trends, but we like to invest in great entrepreneurs, smart people who are doing interesting things,
Regardless of any trend that's
whatever they're doing. It's funny because I get these people who say, well, why, how can you invest in a 22-year-old? They have no background, or what background do they need, or whatever. And the reality is that, I've invested in a couple different groups of very young entrepreneurs, and the way I get comfortable is I talk with them about their business, and I ask them questions, and they have really good answers. And then you say, oh, that's interesting. What about this? And they have a really good answer. And you say, well, what about that? And then they say, yeah, I haven't figured that out yet. And you go, all right.
You don't help me with figuring out where the money is. We want to know. Us Dutch people want to know.
All right,
where
mobile.
the American
You should
crazy-
go. You should go to mobile. It's all about mobile.
It's all about mobile?
It's all about
'Cause that's what
mobile.
everybody here is investing in now?
Sort of. If you want to ask what the trends are, the trends that I see right now, ton of investing in mobile. The open platforms, Android and the iPhone, and ultimately Windows Mobile, etc. That there's a ton of investment around.
But in platforms or in applications for those platforms?
Sort of more in applications, to tell you the truth, these days than platforms, because each of the big providers is creating their own platform. So it'll be interesting to see, can you build a big business and an app sitting on top of these networks?
Yeah.
But social gaming is another one that's very big and interesting, and again, also being
Zynga,
built on
Playfish,
on the top of other people's platforms. So we'll see how that grows.
But are you investing in it?
I have a great social gaming company called Ojai. It has this Flash-based MMO called City of Eternals, and you can go be a vampire and bite things and kill them and run around.
And why is this particular place so special? Sand Hill Road. Why is everybody here? Because the rent here is, what are we talking about per square
too
foot?
much. Too much.
Isn't
It's
it
a
like
lot.
the most expensive real estate on the planet?
I bet you there are places that are more expensive, but it's certainly not cheap. I think
Like
that
this thing I'm sitting on right now, I think per year.
it's an apartment. Yeah, that's
This is
like
pretty much
that's
the
an-
price of an apartment.
That's an
isn't it?
apartment. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I hope it's comfortable.
Woo!
You could sleep on that couch.
Why? Why do you have to be right here?
Well, it's good for the entrepreneurs, right? If they want to pitch a business and they say, okay, I want to tell VCs about my business, they come to Sand Hill Road and they meet there and they meet there.
I know, I've
Someone
done it
goes
right.
upstairs and meets with Benchmark Capital. They come down and they meet with us at August Capital. They go around the corner and they meet with Greylock, building a new building. So there's no good reason. But why is it? Why did all this stuff happen in Silicon Valley at all? And why is it that people started landing VCs on this particular little strip behind Stanford? And I don't know, but every time we think about moving, we say, well, it's a pretty good spot. People know how to find us. We've got a big patio,
There's no
It's
real
good.
reason, is there? Just because it's close
There's
by.
no
and
good
it's-
reason.
There's no good
Absolutely. There's no like. It's not about the water, or there's no.
There's nothing
special,
sensible about it,
special
but-
dust or whatever.
There's nothing sensible, but it just works.
If it works, don't fix it. Keep up. You know, keep at it.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, David.
Yeah, you
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Inside the enterprise, and it's helping you debug systems or security or compliance, etc.
I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah, so you're a consumer webby guy, aren't you?
I have no
You
clue
don't
about
care about
software.
like what
I
all
would
this
love
stuff-
to know. I'm just not smart enough to
Well,
understand.
this stuff
Say
is
it again.
super
What is Splunk?
interesting. Splunk.
In one sentence, the pitch
Splunk.
that you're selling.
It is a search engine for your data center. It sits on top of your log files, and you can't fall asleep. This is exciting
Sorry.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm there.
They did
Did I just fall
tens of
asleep?
millions in revenue last
You
year.
actually
and they'll
saw
do
me fall asleep?
tens
Usually
more.
I sleep with my eyes
Yeah,
open.
no, you
Usually-
managed to actually fall asleep that time.
Don't stop